Welcome back, everyone. Amid the rising spate of killings in Plateau and Benue states, former Minister of Defense, Lieutenant General Theophilus Danjuma, has advised Nigerians to defend themselves. According to Danjuma, relying solely on the government for protection is no longer realistic. The retired Lieutenant General says, and I quote, "The warning I gave some years ago is still as valid today as it was then. Nigerians must rise and defend themselves," end of quote. Danjuma also said the people cannot continue to sit and watch while bandits, terrorists and criminal gangs massacre people unchecked, stressing that the time had come for communities to take proactive steps in protecting their lives and properties. Joining me tonight to speak on the importance of this is the Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, Dr. Kabir Adamu. Good evening, Mr. Adamu. Thank you very much for joining us on Politics Tonight. Can you hear me, Dr. Adamu?
Yeah, I can hear you. My
right.
pleasure, okay.
Right.
I'm delighted to be back here again.
Right. Thank you for always finding time to join us. You know, it gets worrisome by the day, doesn't it? I mean, T.Y. Danjuma is not the first Nigerian to have made this profound statement. I remember that as far back as 2020, former Governor Saba Otom of Benue State called on the Buhari administration to allow citizens to bear arms to protect themselves against rising insecurity in the country. A year after 2021, former Governor of Katsina State, Aminu Masari, called on residents of the state to arm themselves and confront bandits because security officials alone cannot tackle insecurity. In 2021, his predecessor, current governor of the state, Diko Rada, says if bandits could buy guns freely, civilians should be allowed to bear arms. And just recently, precisely in March, Plateau State Governor Clep Malfang says he believes every community must defend itself in response to this mass killings in the state. So, clearly, T.Y. Danjuma's statement is not new. But my question to you is, has Nigeria's level of insecurity reached a point where citizens should resort to self-defense?
So the question is a very complex one, and it requires, I would say, some deconstructing. First off, yes, citizens have a right to defend themselves. It is only logical that if someone is being killed, then that person should defend themselves. Last time you and I spoke, we documented the number of persons who have been killed from January to the end of March 2025, and that's over 3,000 Nigerians, about 3,600 Nigerians thereabout. Within the month of April, we're yet to completely document it, but the figures is near almost 1,000 at the moment. So yes, all of these persons have a right to defend themselves. But there is a challenge, and the challenge is where we live in an organized community to the extent where the responsibility for protecting us lies on the government. So anyone who invariably calls for citizens or communities to defend themselves is also inadvertently and invariably saying that the government has failed in that responsibility to protect ourselves. And I don't think it will augur well for the future of our country if the common narrative is every community should defend itself. Because what it means is that, first off, we're legitimizing vigilantalism, we're legitimizing the militarization of our communities, and we're reducing the effect of the institution of the state. And that by doing that, we're returning to that Obasian state of existence where only the powerful will kind of get it with. And then if you add to the fact that the types of conflict that we have in most parts of Nigeria is an identity-based conflict. You have the we and the them group in most parts of Nigeria. So what it means is that the we will defend itself against the them. And then the other them, which would also now be we, would defend itself against the other side. So you just have a situation of reprisals upon reprisals until a point where there is a balance of terror. And then when that balance of terror exists, then you have some semblance of calm until another cycle of killings start repeating itself. So I am not supportive of this call, and I think it's quite unfortunate that it's coming from persons who should know better and who perhaps in the past had a role to play in national security, in national defense, and then now in the twilight of their life, they are making these calls. So I would be of the view that it is wrong, and it is better to turn that call on the state to say, let the state strengthen its capacity to protect us, and that perhaps when it does that, this call for self-defense will reduce, because we still have a public security system in place. That public security system has not collapsed. So invariably saying that it has collapsed, I think is foolhardy, and it should be, defended. And I'm hoping
the other
that
question would be, Dr. Adamu, the other question would be, does the state have the capacity to protect us? Because really there's been several reactions to this latest call, and that was why I wanted to know if indeed we've gotten to that point of self-defense as a nation. Governor Namadi of Jigawa State has said resorting to self-defense will cause anarchy, just as you've pointed out. But from another angle, when people say it's high time Plateau people or Nigerians defended themselves, is this even realistic? Can we really, or can they really defend themselves against these terrorists and bandits who go about with highly sophisticated weapons? So another question I'd like to ask you, which is kind of direct, because I believe at this point we cannot continue to, polish some of these conversations any longer. Human beings are dying almost every day. Nigerians are losing their lives every day, especially at this time of the day when they're helpless. Some evil-minded individuals invade their communities and kill them. Is this an indication that the country is at war with itself?
By all definitions of warfare, we have entered a state of warfare. If on a monthly basis, 1,000 people will be killed, if you divide that 3,600 by the number of days in a month, so let's use 30, that means 90. We're arriving at least 5 persons being killed per day. And this is a very conservative estimate. As you know, there are days where up to 100 persons are killed in Nigeria. But we're using a very conservative estimate, using this 3,000 number to say that at least 5 persons are being killed. So there is no definition of war that you would use that will not enter, in the lexicon of what war means. It's only that we have not declared that war. Yes. But back to your question on why this call for self-defense, I would say is uncharitable, and it's not appropriate coming from elders at this point in time. There are other things to do, and I don't understand why we're shying away from calling on those other things. As an example, why, in the case of retired General T.Y. Danjuma, with due respect to him, why is he not calling for improved public security? Perhaps we should start from that. And there are levels of that. Remember, there is the federal government, which has all the paraphernalia of security. Then most state governments also have some level of paraphernalia of security. So why is it that we're not demanding for an improvement in security from this public security departments? Why is it that we have in our democratic system 3 levels? We have the executive arm, we have the legislative arm, we have the judiciary, and each of this can play a role in this regard. If the executive, where all of these MDAs exist, all the security exist, and they are not performing, why don't we pressure the National Assembly to take some level of action as provided for in our democratic system on the executive to ensure that the public security is improved? So it is until we do all of this before we reach a state. And don't forget, if in the next round of elections, security become an issue and we vote because we are not happy with the performance of this administration in security, then also that's an option. But I do not think it is fair, it is wise, and it is good for the future of this country for this call to defend themselves. It would lead us to a state of, like I said, Hobbesian existence.